The 2021 MLB season is here, and although the seats may not be full, your bankroll has the chance to be. Greg Hoops Peterson has you covered for every game, every day this season, along with comprehensive analysis and angles for getting to the window while celebrating the walk-off winners and blown saves of what will be a wild season. Now it is time for the Baseball Betting Podcast with Greg Peterson.
A wonderfully hello, welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Podcast. Myself, Greg Peterson. Got a great podcast for you. In the second segment, myself and my good friend Jeff Parles of the Vegas Stats and Information Network are going to be looking at the playoff picture, some of the games for Friday, and just what we have all seen with both the San Diego Padres, this American League playoff picture. Also going to be taking a look at some of the awards races as well. Odds to win the Cy Young, taking a look at the MVP award, especially in the National League, so going to have some fun there. Then in the final segment, going to give you guys a sign total on every game on the betting board for this Friday, and a little something I like to call Touch 'em All. First things first, always love to be able to answer Twitter questions on this podcast. And you got one or two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Did not wind up getting in any Twitter questions today, aside from people are trying to tell me that Shohei Ohtani is not going to be winning the MVP, to which I laugh at you. We will talk a little bit more about that in the second segment, but had a great day of baseball on Thursday, so let's take a look back at it. Try to find some trends in. Try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
What happened yesterday? Let's go around the bases and find out.
Guess who won again, ladies and gentlemen? The St. Louis Cardinals are racing a 5-0 deficit in this one to win by a count of 8-5 thanks to a 4 spot in the 7th inning. Paul Goldschmidt winds up going yard not once but twice in this one for his 28th and 29th home runs of the season. Adam Wainwright, who had been so reliable for the Cardinals, winds up getting destroyed in this one. He gives up 5 runs over the course of 4 innings, including a pair of bombs from Tyrone Taylor, his 11th and 12th of the season. But then the bullpen winds up picking it up. Kwon Young Kim, 2 scoreless innings. TJ McFarland, Luis Garcia, Giovanni Gallegos. I'll give you a scoreless inning for the Milwaukee Brewers. Adrian Hauser gave a great start. Gives up 1 run over the course of 6 innings. And then Jake Cousins gives up 3 runs in a third of an inning. Brian Boxberger, who's been unraveling lately, he gives up a run in 2/3 of an inning. And then Aaron Ashby, the young prospect that might be a little bit of a do-it-all reliever for the team, gives up 3 runs, 2 of which were including one of those bombs, to Paul Goldschmidt. Also for the San Diego Padres, they're trying to, at this point, avoid not being a sub-500 team. Their win on Thursday should be able to help with that. 7-6 of final in 10 innings. They wind up blowing a 4-0 lead in this one, but they were able to right the ship late with a pair of home runs. Late in this one, being able to supply the boom off of Jose Quintana. That'd be Trent Grisham, 15th home run season. And then Ah-Sung Kim was able to get his 7th home run season for Mr. Quintana. He gives up both of those home runs. 2 runs a total over the course of 1 2/3 innings. Logan Webb, by the way, the Giants were 17-1 in his last 18 starts. He had allowed more than 3 runs in just one of them. Gives up 4 runs in the first inning, 4 innings in total over the course of 4 innings. Bullpen from there was able to do their job. Zach Liddell, Jose Alvarez combined for a scoreless inning. Kervin Castro was able to give you 1 1/3 inning scoreless. Jarlin Garcia, a scoreless inning, and then Dominique Leon allows the unearned run in the 10th inning as the Giants were also able to get a pair of homers. As you wind up having Austin Slater go deep off of Tim Hill, his 11th home run season, and Mike Yastrzemski goes deep off of Mr. Yu Darvish for his 24th home run season for Darvish. So he'll give it up at least 4 runs in 9 out of his last 13 starts, giving up 4 runs over the course of 5 1/3 in this one. Tim Hill winds up giving up a solo home run in his 2/3 of an inning. Pierce Johnson allows a run in an inning, but then Danny Hudson, Mark Melancon, Ross Detweiler all give you a scoreless inning to be able to close it out. The Cincinnati Reds continue to just absolutely pour lighter fluid on their playoff chances. 3-2, they lose to the Washington Nationals. This is a bad one as Patrick Corbin, who entered into this game with north of a 6 ERA, 6 2/3 innings scoreless. Mason Thompson gives you an out of the bullpen. Kyle Finnegan does wind up giving up 2 runs in the 9th, but was able to close it out. Tanner Rainey, a scoreless inning, and Juan Soto trying to make a push for MVP. I don't know if he's going to be able to get it with how bad the Nationals have been, but his 28th and 29th home runs of the season now is a .470 on base as he winds up going deep once off of Luis Castillo, who gave a solid start in this one, giving up 2 runs over the course of 6 innings, including one of those homers, and then he goes deep off of Luis Cessa, who winds up giving up 1 run in his inning. Amir Garrett, Art Warren were both able to give you a scoreless inning, but for the Reds, 1 of 8 with men in scoring position. The injuries to Jesse Winker, Taylor Naquin clearly taking their toll. This is taking its toll on the White Sox, unable to be able to get wins on the road. They wind up splitting a pair with the Cleveland Indians. They take game 1 by a count of 7-2. They were really able to get the power going in this one as Tim Anderson, pair of home runs off of Mr. Aaron Savali, 15th and 16th home runs of the season. Savali gives one up to Luis Robert and Eloy Jimenez as well, both of their 9th home runs of the season. As for Savali, gives up 4 bombs, he got 5 outs, and he gave up 7 runs. From there, John Carlos Mejia, 2 1/3 innings scoreless. Logan Allen, 2 scoreless innings, and then you wind up getting a scoreless inning out of Francisco Perez, but damage had been done. Indians were able to get a pair of solo runs to themselves off of one Reynaldo Lopez. He winds up serving one up to Bobby Bradley, 15th home run season opposite edges, his 9th as for Lopez. 3 1/3 innings, gives up those 2 solo home runs. Garrett Crochet gives you a pair of outs out of the bullpen. Aaron Bummer, Craig Kimbrell, Liam Hendricks all close it out with a scoreless inning apiece. And then the Indians wind up taking game 2 by a count of 5-3 as Michael Kopech winds up being used as a pseudo opener in this one. 2 scoreless innings. Michael Wright Jr. winds up giving up 1 run in 2 innings, but then Matt Foster gives up 2 runs in 1 1/3 inning, and Jose Ruiz winds up giving up a home run, 2 runs in 2 outs as it was Oscar Mercado being able to get his 6th home run season for Zach Plesac. Not a bad start here. Gives up 2 runs over the course of 5 1/3 innings. Brian Shaw gives you a pair of outs out of the bullpen, and then one Emmanuel Clase was able to give you a scoreless inning to be able to close this one out. Speaking of being able to close out, that's what the Dodgers did to the Colorado Rockies as they are now just a game back of the San Francisco Giants in that competitive NL West. 7-5, the Dodgers get the win. Max Muncy in the 10th inning comes up clutch. 35th home run season. That comes off of Lucas Gilbreth, who winds up giving up 2 runs, one of which was earned in that one. Kyle Freeland, once again, a solid start. He has given up 3 runs or fewer, and now I believe it's something like 14 out of his last 17 starts, giving up 3 in 6 innings. Daniel Barta scoreless inning, and then Ulis Chacin, Carlos Estevez both give up a run in their inning. And for the Colorado Rockies, Remiel Tapia, welcome back. 6th home run of the season. That comes off of Max Scherzer, and for Scherzer, he came into the start, I believe, having given up just 6 earned runs as an LA Dodger. He gives up 5 in 5 innings in this one. That's what Coors Field will do to you. But then from there, Kenley Jansen, Blake Tryon, David Price, Joe Kelly, all give you a scoreless inning. Phil Bickford, Justin Brule, they combine for a scoreless inning. So the Dodgers, we've got the second best bullpen ERA in the big leagues, able to get it done there. In the NL West, the Arizona Diamondbacks get it done. They've got 104 losses, but they're looking to get to at least 50 wins. They now have 49, 6-4. They take down the Atlanta Braves as one Charlie Morton did not wind up giving the world's greatest start, giving up 3 runs over the course of 6 innings, but it was better than Jacob Webb, who gave up a homer and 3 runs in total with not getting it out. Carson Kelly gets his 12th home run season. And for Mad Bum, Madison Bumgarner, not great, not terrible, gives up 3 runs over the course of 5 innings, including a homer of his own. Going deep, Austin Riley's 32nd home run season. For the Braves, Richard Rodriguez, Tyler Madsick both provide a scoreless inning, but the Arizona Diamondbacks bullpen was pretty solid themselves. Noe Ramirez, J.B. Wendelken, Sean Poppin all give you a scoreless inning, and then Taylor Widener gives up a run in an inning, but the Diamondbacks go 3 of 8 with men in scoring position, so the Atlanta Braves, they now find themselves clinging to a 2-game lead over the Philadelphia Phillies in the NL East as the Phillies, after getting down 6-0 against the Pittsburgh Pirates, put up 12 runs from there unanswered to be able to win by a count of 12-6. For the Buccos, it was Connor Overton who got the start, gave up 4 runs over the course of 2 2/3 innings. You then have Cody Ponce give up a run while going 1 1/3 innings. Anthony Banda gives up 3 runs in 1 2/3 innings. Hey, you wind up having Nick Mears give you an out of the bullpen, but Chad Kuhl along with Aniel De Los Santos both give up 2 runs in their inning of work. For the Pittsburgh Pirates, they did get a pair of home runs. Colin Moran, 9th of the season, that comes off of Aaron Supernola. Aaron Supernola was not so super as he also gave one up to Brian Hayes, his 6th of the season. Nola gives up 6 runs over the course of 6 innings, but also keep in mind that 5 of those came in the second inning, so you wound up settling down from there. Archie Bradley, Jose Alvarado, Bailey Falter were able to provide scoreless innings from there, but you wound up having a trio of home runs for the Phillies to be able to get the job done. Didi Gregorius, they go Euphorious for his 12th home run of the season. JT Realmuto, 16th home run of the season, and Ronald Torreyes was able to get his 7th home run of the campaign. The campaign has been a long one for both the Texas Rangers and the Baltimore Orioles, and the Orioles shut out the Texas Rangers by a count of 3-0. The Rangers have now scored 3 runs or fewer in 9 straight games. If you can't score on the poopy Baltimore Orioles, I don't know what to tell you. Zach Lawther, a man who came into this game with an ERA hovering right around 9, gives you 5 scoreless innings. Mike Baumann lowers his ERA to a 9.90 with 1 1/3 inning scoreless. Cole Sulzer, 1 2/3 inning scoreless. And then Tyler Wells closes things out in the 9th inning as the Orioles get a pair of home runs. As Ryan Mountcastle gets his 31st home run of the season, that comes off of Mr. Glenn Otto, who winds up giving up 2 runs over the course of 5 innings. And then Joe Barlow serves one up to Austin the Say's kid, his 22nd home run of the season. Mike Fultonavich, 2 scoreless innings out of the bullpen, and for the Rangers, 0 of 8 with runners in scoring position. This has just been a ghastly bad offense recently. This has not been good for the Blue Jays. They wind up losing to the Minnesota Twins by a count of 7-2. The Twins getting revenge for the Jose Barrios trade, as it was Mr. Teoscar Hernandez providing the main form of offense for the Toronto Blue Jays. He now has 110 RBI, by the way. 30th home run season. I knew that he was doing well. I didn't realize he had 110 RBI. Steven Matz, well, he didn't necessarily go long in this one. Only gave up 2 runs, but only was able to give you 3 innings. From there, you wind up having 3 runs in 1 2/3 innings from Thomas Hatch, as he wound up having hamstring tightness that wound up costing him in this one. Julian Merriweather, he goes 1 1/3 innings, giving up a run. Ryan Borucki gives up a run in an inning, and Adam Simber was able to give you a scoreless inning. The Minnesota Twins got a bomb of their own. This from Nick Gordon, his 4th home run season, and Michael Pineda was not Michael Pinata. He does give up 8 hits over the course of his 5 innings, but just 2 runs. From there, Nick Vincent, Caleb Theobar both give you a scoreless inning, and Luke Farrell along the Ralph Garza Jr. were able to provide a combined 2 scoreless innings to be able to get the job done in this one. Speaking of being able to get the job done, and we're going to talk a lot more about the American League playoff picture in the next segment, the Seattle Mariners sweep the Oakland A's by a count of 6-5, and they are now just 2 games back of that second wildcard spot. As for the Seattle Mariners, how about them being able to get a home run off the bat of Mitch Haniger, 35th home run of the season, Luis Torrens, his 15th home run of the season, and Cal Raleigh is second, as the Seattle Mariners have now won 32 games by 1 run. No other team has any more than 30, so they have been able to do a great job in these 1-run games. And by the way, for the Oakland A's, their wildcard chances are now very slim, as they are now 4 games back, so that is an absolute killer. And what killed them is the bullpen. Chris Bassett had you hook, line, and sinker, 3 scoreless innings coming off of the injured list. James Caprillion comes in long relief, gives up 3 runs in 2 innings. Jake Diekman winds up giving up 2 of those home runs, gives up 3 runs, 2 homers, while getting 1 out. Deolis Carrera was able to give you 1 2/3 innings scoreless. Andrew Chafin, Lou Trevino give you a scoreless inning, and for the team, they were able to get a pair of home runs. Matt Olson, 38th home run season, that comes up with Paul Sewald. And then it was the 17th home run of the campaign for Mr. Sean Murphy, as he winds up going deep off of Yohan Ramirez. For Ramirez, he winds up giving up 1 run while getting 1 out. Yusei Kikuchi, not the start he was looking for, giving up 3 runs over the course of 3 innings, but Anthony Machevich gives you a pair of outs out of the bullpen. Casey Sadler, 2 scoreless innings. Sewald gives up that solo home run in his inning of work, but Diego Castillo and Josh Smith both provide a scoreless inning. So how about that from the Seattle Mariners? And how about this from the LA Angels? They take down the Houston Astros by a count of 3-1. For the Houston Astros, just not a lot doing on offense in this one, as Lance McCullers Jr., who entered into this game with right around a 2.5 ERA on the road, not necessarily what he was looking for, considering the Angels have scored the fewest runs per game of any team in the MLB since the beginning of September. Ryan Stanek, Blake Taylor from there both provide a scoreless inning, and Seth Martinez was able to give you a scoreless inning. And for the LA Angels, it was a very good start from Alex Cobb, giving up 1 run over the course of 5 2/3 innings. Rossio Iglesias, Mike Myers provide a scoreless inning, and then you wind up getting 1 1/3 out of Austin Warren scoreless. And for the LA Angels, just 1 of 8 with men in scoring position, but just enough to be able to get the job done in this one. And speaking of being able to get the job done, you have been able to get the job done if you've been avoiding just blindly taking favorites so far this year, because it'd be a little bit brutal if you did. Unders have a very slim lead on overs by a count of 1,089 unders to 1,079 overs. We've seen a couple more overs in recent days. We'll dive into that in a second. Overall, favorites hitting about 59.1% clip this year. 1335 and 923. Meanwhile, home teams, they are 1,224, 1,057. If you're looking over the last 7 days, we've noticed a nice influx of over 46 overs, 45 unders, so a little bit over 50% of games going over. Favorites in that time span, 50 and 44, and home teams 44 and 52. It's been actually really brutal for home teams over the last 30 days, as they are now 194 and 208 in the last 30 days, so hitting a little bit above 48% according to covers. Favorites in this time span, 224 and 171, so hitting just below 57%, and unders have a slim lead on overs over the last 30 days, 189 unders, 186 overs. So that's what we're all seeing in Major League Baseball right now, and that's what we wound up seeing on Thursday. Now let's turn the page forward to Friday. Let's take a look at some of these awards races out there in Major League Baseball when it comes to Cy Young, MVP. And let's also just chat about the Friday betting board with our good friend Jeff Parles of the Vegas Stats and Information Network. That's up next right here on the Baseball Betting Podcast with myself, Greg Peterson.
Greg is calling in a pinch hitter from the Overtime Network hotline.
Back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Podcast. Myself, Greg Peterson. It is always great to be joined by this guest, as the man does terrific work over there with the Vegas Stats and Information Network. You're able to catch him Monday through Friday doing the production for A Numbers Game. You're able to catch that show from 7 to 9 a.m. Pacific. If you're looking Eastern Time, that's 10 a.m. to noon, Monday through Friday. And then he's on the VSiN Bet Center during the weekends as well, during the NFL and college foosball season, as we've got Jeff Parles on the podcast. You're able to follow him on Twitter at Easy Enough. Jeff Parles, and that is Jeff with a J, not a G-E. And Jeff, it is always great to have you aboard. Thank you so much for joining me.
It's good to be with you, Hoops.
It is great to have you aboard, and it is great that the MLB season is coming to a fever pitch, if you will. We've got about 10 days left in the regular season, and we've got some good matchups for this week, and I think that it is so intriguing what we're seeing out there in the American League when it comes to the wild card, because, well, the Padres have played their way out of the National League wild card, so it seems like the Cardinals have been able to overtake that one. But you've got a Seattle Mariners bunch that, at the time of recording, have just taken down the Oakland A's. That they are 2 games back of that second wild card spot, and now they get an LA Angels team that, let's face it, they have not been good recently, and this is a Seattle Mariners bunch that I think we both were in agreement. We thought that this team was going to fade away. Their negative 50-plus run differential was going to catch up with them. But here they are, and with 10 days left, with the way that the bullpen is pitching, I can't necessarily count them out of this wild card race.
Yeah, Greg, look, shout out to them to just defying logic all year long and hanging in. And there's something that has to be said about the ability to win tight games like this team has all year long. Now, what that probably means, Greg, is they're in for a regression next year. But I'm not so certain about that because the young talent on that team is only going to get better as the years go along. So maybe Seattle next year ends up with a record similar to what they have this year with a much better-looking run differential. For these last 10 days, look, I think I'm looking at this point in the American League wild card race. It's pretty amazing how topsy-turvy it's been with those 3 AL East teams, how basically every one of them now has held that top spot for a few days here over the last 3 weeks. I think Boston's safe. I just like the Red Sox schedule the rest of the way more than the other 2 teams because the Yankees have Boston, Toronto, Tampa remaining. Obviously, Toronto has a series against the Yankees left. Boston had played the Yankees great in the first half, have not played them as well in the second half. But the Red Sox seemingly have found their starting pitching again, which disappeared while they fell off. I think we're going to end up, Greg, with a Boston-Toronto wild card game. I think that's what's going to end up happening because I think the Blue Jays will win that series against the Yankees, and then the Yankees will lose 2 out of 3 to Tampa, despite the fact that Tampa will probably just be trying to get the rotation set for a division series. And if I were Tampa, I don't care who I play of any of these wild card teams. So it doesn't matter. Just do whatever you want to do in that last series. For Seattle, look, you're right. Their schedule is pretty good looking, all things considered. But in the end here, I think the AL East teams end up holding off Seattle. I think it's going to be Boston and Toronto for this one on Friday night. Look, Greg, we've talked about it too. On top of winning all these tight games, they have feasted on mediocre teams. At this point, you're looking at being 2 games, 1.5 games back going into this weekend. Seattle goes 7-2. That's when this can get interesting. I don't think they will go 7-2, even though they just swept Oakland, and the A's are really just a disappointing end of the season with a horrible last 2.5 weeks to basically push themselves out of pure contention here. But I would only look to bet the Mariners against the Angels. But I do think, Greg, that they will come up short to 2 of those 3 in the AL East, and I think it's going to be Boston and Toronto when this is all said and done.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there. I do think that it's going to be 2 of those 3 American League East teams. Obviously, the New York Yankees and the Toronto Blue Jays have a pivotal series coming up next week. And this week we've got Yankees versus Red Sox, as we do have Jeff Parles joining me on the podcast. And what a great matchup we've got. Garrett Cole's going to be going for the New York Yankees, Nathan Eovaldi on Friday. And with the Yankees, they're finding themselves as very slight favorites, right around -112, -115-ish, depending on where you look, with a total of 9. And I really think that this is a do-or-die game for the New York Yankees, because we've seen it with the Yankees. The pitching has been a little bit all over the place. The bullpen has taken a little bit of a blow with Jonathan Loáisiga being on the injured list, but ever since Garrett Cole has come off the COVID IL, aside from one hiccup, he's really been good for this team, and he needs to go out there, in my opinion, and get this team a win in a game in which they desperately need against a Boston Red Sox team that has had a lot of success against the Yankees this year.
Well, and the Red Sox have been great against Cole, except for the one start where Cole basically said, you know what, bleep you, I'm going to shut you down tonight. And that's what Garrett Cole did in that one start earlier this year in Fenway. Greg, I'm not going to bet this game, but this is a very important game for people who hold Cy Young futures here. Because Robbie Ray is the favorite going into the weekend. And Robbie Ray's coming off, it wasn't a bad start, but it was a start where he was average against the Baltimore Orioles in a game that Toronto lost. If Garrett Cole goes out there in his last 2 regular season starts, and maybe the Yankees try to get greedy and try to push it to 3, I just don't know how you'd be able to do that unless if you're bringing them back on 3 days rest in game 162. But look, I think you have a last-ditch push for Garrett Cole to win the American League Cy Young here if he shuts down the Red Sox. If you're holding a Cole ticket, you're hoping for a Yankee win, Cole goes at least 7 innings, shuts down the Sox, and looks good in the process of doing it. So no play for me. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised if either team closes the favorite here, but I don't expect either way to get more than, well, what would you say? I think the peak you're going to see either way is even money for the dog in this one, regardless of whichever team it is, assuming that Eovaldi and Cole make the starts at schedule.
Yeah, I'm right now seeing the Red Sox as good as a +105, and I think that you might be able to get like a +110, but I don't think that you're going to get anything ridiculous. And I love the fact that you brought up the Garrett Cole Cy Young futures, because I do think that it's an interesting race. As of right now, I've got Robbie Ray as my Cy Young winner, but I really do think that this is one in which it is going to come down to their final 2 starts with both of these guys. They're pretty equal in strikeouts. Robbie Ray has given up a couple more homers, but he's been a little bit more sharp down the stretch, giving up 3 runs or fewer in something like 19 out of his last 20 games. So I do think that these last 2 starts are absolutely crucial if you do have a Cy Young future on either of these guys, because the guys like the Carlos Rodons, Lance Lynn, the guys on the White Sox just haven't accrued enough innings to be able to be in this race.
No, it's a 2-horse race. So you're 100% right. It's only Cole or Ray at this point. I lean Ray at the moment also, and you know how fickle voters can be. If the Yankees make the playoffs because Cole has 2 great starts the last 10 days of the season and Toronto misses, as unfair as it is, even if Ray's next start, he's unhittable, Cole's going to probably win the award if the Yankees get in over Toronto. So that's just the way it's going to be. Greg, the award seasons, this is one of the more interesting award seasons that I can remember, because usually by now you have a pretty good grasp on who's winning 3 out of the 4 awards, and it's really only one award where it's a question mark. The only award that we know, and I know you've been going back and forth with some people that follow you on Twitter, the only thing we know is Shohei Ohtani's winning the American League, the American League MVP. We know that. The betting markets indicate that. He's winning the MVP. That race has been over since, is it fair to say, the middle of July? That race has been over. It's basically just get to the end of the season on 2 feet. And Ohtani has struggled in September. There's no arguing that. But he's done stuff that Babe Ruth was the last person to do. And it's not just one thing. It's about 18 different stats through this year. So if you're arguing with Greg on Twitter that Vlad Guerrero Jr. is going to win the AL MVP, you're wrong. I'm sorry. You're just wrong. Shohei has won the AL MVP. That race is over. The other 3 races, AL Cy Young, you have mano a mano with Cole and Ray, will go down possibly to the last day, depending on how many starts those guys get. NL MVP is a total mess. You can't give the award to Fernando Tatis Jr. at this point. You just can't. To me, it should be a 2-horse race between Bryce Harper and Juan Soto. And I know there will be people that are yelling, how can you possibly give it to Soto? The Nationals stink. Well, Juan Soto's been best player in baseball the last 6 weeks of the season. And probably Harper's been the second best player the last 6 weeks of the season. If you give the award to either of those guys, I have no problem with it. I do lean Harper. He got the Phillies back into the race. It was him. It wasn't the team. It was him. that got the Phillies back into the race. And the only reason they are still in the race technically is because Bryce Harper has been the National League MVP. Kind of similar to what it was in Washington in 2015, where Harper won the MVP, and the only reason they even hung around until September was because of how good Bryce Harper was. And it was not Bryce Harper's fault that year. That was Yoenis Cespedes owning Drew Storen's soul in September of 2015 that did the Nationals in there. The other race, the NL Cy Young, Greg, I have no idea who's going to win the NL Cy Young. I know Scherzer was the favorite going into Thursday. He had his worst start as a Dodger by far at Coors. I'm not sure who wins it. It could be him. It could be Corbin Burns. It probably is one of those two guys. But look, the NL Cy Young race is by far the weirdest one of them all. And look, if you have tickets on about 4 or 5 different guys, you probably think going to the last week, yeah, I guess I have a shot here. Even though in the end, I think Scherzer probably will be the one who wins it, especially if the Dodgers catch the Giants.
And Scherzer, really, aside from his start yesterday, been pretty darn unhittable ever since getting to LA. And then to your point about Juan Soto, 466 on base going into yesterday, and Bryce Harper, 17 home runs since the beginning of August. So I'm right there with you. You got to rule out Fernando Tatis Jr. as the Padres have just thrown their entire season into the incinerator at this point. And speaking of the San Diego Padres, they're going to be squaring off against the Atlanta Braves. And as of right now, we have no idea what the Padres are going to be throwing out there. Meanwhile, it's going to be Max Fried going for the Atlanta Braves. And the way that the Padres have been using up their bullpen, I just cannot find any reason to back the Padres in this spot. I'm seeing the initial line at DraftKings with the Padres being a slight favorite with a sight unseen pitcher. And, well, It could be just about anyone. Yeah. DraftKings, as of right now, even though we have no pitcher listed for the Padres, have the Padres at minus 125 and the Atlanta Braves at plus 105, and I will gladly take the Atlanta Braves at this price. I'll take the Atlanta Braves even if I would be getting the minus 125 at this point, because the Padres, they keep getting priced like this. They were a favorite yesterday with Yu Darvish struggling, and I mean, if you really want to be making money right now, just bet against the San Diego Padres until the end of the year.
That line's flabbergasting.
Yeah.
The anvil has been placed on the rope, and Wile E. Coyote has got straight up in the air for the San Diego Padres the last 4 weeks now. I don't get that. And no disrespect to Touki Toussaint, who's had his moments this year, but Fried and Morton are the Braves' 2 best starting pitchers, even though Morton got beat on Thursday by the
Ian Anderson's good too.
Yeah, but Greg, we're talking about a guy who's a legitimate starting pitcher, and Max Fried is a dog against a team that is totally lead ballooning here down the stretch. That's insane. If you're listening to this pod and that plus price on Atlanta is still up there, go bet it, because that should not be there by game time. I would have guessed if you said Atlanta was minus 130, I would say that was a good bet on Atlanta.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a totally backwards line.
And I'm just trying to figure out who the Padres are even going to throw out there, because they designated Jake Arrieta for assignment. They wound up throwing Vince Velasquez a couple days ago. It looks like he's no longer on the roster. Denelson Lamet has been used out of the bullpen. Ryan Weathers was used for a couple innings 2 days ago. I'm just taking a look, and process of elimination says that you might get Nabel Krismich who winds up starting. I'm trying to look to see who winds up starting, and I don't know.
Well, granted, if you threw Mr. Clanky instead of Jake Arrieta, you're probably getting a better outing at this point than what Arrieta was. And look, the Padres, Greg, the Minnesota Twins for the longest time had the moniker of most disappointing team. When this is all said and done, when the Padres finish under 500, this is one of the most disappointing seasons that I can remember from a team, go from what the expectations were going into the season. And especially with them, Greg, they were rolling into the playoffs at the All-Star break. Even though there were cracks, they were rolling. It was going to be the 3 teams from the NL West, and whoever wins that game gets the NL West champion in the DS. We had already pretty much determined that at the All-Star break. And the Padres, and look, we talked about it on Bet Center during the summer, me and Josh Towers. Greg, they just massacred their bullpen too early in this season. And they had too many injuries in the starting pitching front, and they did nothing at the trade deadline. They put all their eggs in the Max Scherzer basket, and they lost that trade. Soon as Scherzer went to the Dodgers, they needed to get on the phone and get something reasonable in the starting rotation. They did not, and they have paid the price. And in all honesty, there should be a lot of people out of a job in that franchise going forward, because you cannot waste the amount of talent they have and miss the playoffs. Greg, they might finish 10 games behind the Cardinals when this is all said and done. And that's just blatantly unacceptable for them.
And they're in danger of finishing below 500. I still remember, to your point, that there were a lot of people saying at the All-Star break, oh, the Padres at 53 and 40 have been underachieving. And I'm just sort of like, maybe expected a little bit more. But as of right now, it's not too bad. Now it's really bad. Now you certainly have a point if you're saying that the Padres are the most underachieving team in baseball, because this has just been a calamity, as we do have Jeff Parles of the Vegas Stats and Information Network joining me on the podcast. And Jeff, just when you take a look at Friday and everything moving forward, because we're down to the last 10 days of the MLB regular season, is there anything else that really catches your eye? Because we've got Yankees, Red Sox, which no doubt that has a lot of big playoff implications. I think it's going to be really fascinating to see what we get with the St. Louis Cardinals, who have won 12 straight games. We're going to be playing a double dip at Wrigley Field, so you've got a lot of that going on. Anything else that's really catching your attention?
I will tell you, Greg, and I'm happy you brought the Cardinals and the Cubs up, because the run that the Cardinals are on right now just defies all logic, because that's a pretty average team. I understand that you have two legitimate great players, Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt, on that team. Tyler O'Neill's been a revelation there in St. Louis over the last month plus. But the Cardinals, and Greg, it won't happen. It shouldn't, because the Brewers will probably sweep the Mets this weekend and put everything to rest in the NL Central over the weekend. But if the Brewers mess around with the Mets this weekend and the Cardinals sweep the Cubs or take 3 out of 4, the Brewers last week of the season is at St. Louis and at the Dodgers. And the Dodgers are going to need those games the last weekend to possibly catch the Giants. We could be talking about, and again, if these numbers pop again tomorrow on Friday morning, because I know there are some in the sharp betting community that want to see the Cardinals to win any NL Central number out there again, it would probably have to still be about 500 to 1. But we've seen a lot of crazy things happen in this baseball season. I'm not saying it happens, but if the Cardinals take care of their business, and they got the right guy starting the first game in Flaherty on Friday afternoon there in Wrigley, and the Brewers mess around with the Mets, and look, trust me, I don't think that's happening. I think the Brewers are sweeping the Mets, and that division will be clinched on Sunday afternoon with Bernie going down the slide. But there are some real wackadoo scenarios that are in play in the National League playoff races if the Cardinals sweep and the Brewers mess around with the Mets this weekend. Again, I don't think it happens, but that's where my eyeballs are. It's the NL Central, just because something really ridiculous could happen. And, of course, the NL West race, the Dodgers and the Giants. It's one of the best division races we have ever had. Probably the best one since you and I were both still in diapers in 1993 with the Giants and the Braves, where the Giants missed the playoffs with 103 wins. It's the best division race since then. Enjoy it. As always, with football and the Ryder Cup, this is a sports weekend across the board, and baseball's included in that.
Absolutely, and the San Francisco Giants are going to be heading to Colorado, where Peter Lambert is going to be making his first start in like 700 days, so that's going to be very intriguing. Alex Wood has not necessarily looked the world's greatest for the San Francisco Giants down the stretch, but I certainly think that he's going to deliver, just like Jeff Parles always delivers on this podcast. You do an absolutely terrific job over there with the Vegas Stats and Information Network, both on a numbers game during the weekdays and then on the Bet Center during weekends. I know that you've got a lot of things going on, my friend. So let the good people at home know they're able to follow you on social media and just everything that you've got going on.
At Jeff Parles on the tweets, producing for Gil, 10 to noon Eastern, Monday through Friday on VSiN. And then myself and Ben Wilson, 9 to 1. That is Saturday into Sunday on VSiN. We're the appetizer before Greg Peterson goes on the GPE coming your way tonight and Saturday. Aren't you excited for that, Hoops? Aren't you excited for the inaugural GPE?
Yes, sir. It's technically tomorrow on the East Coast. It is tonight on the West Coast, so depends on your time zone there, but 1 to 4 p.m., 1 to 4 a.m. Eastern on the East Coast, 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. out here on the West Coast, so it's going to be absolutely magnificent. And as Jeff said, prior to that, it's 4 hours of he and Ben Wilson. They do an absolutely terrific job, and doing a terrific job as always, Jeff Parles on this podcast. So big thanks to him for joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast to give you a signed total on every game on the betting board for this Friday, and a little something like to call Touch 'em All.
Welcome back to the Baseball Betting Podcast with Greg Peterson, as we're off to a quality start, and now it's time to walk it off in a grand fashion.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Podcast. Myself, Greg Peterson. Always great to get Jeff Parles of the Vegas Stats and Information Network on this podcast doing a great job helping out with the numbers game, doing a great job on the VSiN Bet Center as well, and always does a great job on this podcast. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you a signed total on every game on the betting board for this Friday, and a little something I like to call Touch 'em all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch 'em all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter feed at gunit_81. We are going to be going in the Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first, then the American League games, and then we've got one interleague game that is going to be at the bottom. And I'm going to group the first two games together between the St. Louis Cardinals and the Chicago Cubs, since we've got a double dip there. And we will start right there with the double dip in Wrigley Field. 901, 902, and 907, 908 between the Cardinals and the Cubs. In game one, you've got J. Happ, who hopes to not be hapless for the Cardinals. Justin Steele is on the bump for the Cubs, and then 907, 908, Captain Jack Flaherty goes for the Cardinals. Zach Davies goes for the Cubs. As of right now, for Flaherty versus Davies, seeing the Cardinals at minus 180, plus 166 on the Cubs. If you're looking at 901, 902, Happ versus Steele, seeing the Cardinals anywhere between minus 155 and minus 160, between plus 140 and plus 143 on the Cubs. Very initial numbers. We're not seeing too many books posting these up, and we've got no total on either of these games. That's because you've got the whole Wrigley Field situation going on with the wind, and I can tell you right now, and taking a look at the wind, it looks like we're going to be having the wind blowing out, and it's going to get more and more intense throughout the day. So this is a spot in which I wound up setting Happ versus Steele to where a 7.5 or lower. I'm going to be taking a look at the over, and 8 or higher to the under. And then in Flaherty versus Davies, a 7 or lower to the over, 7.5 or higher to the under. In game one between Happ versus Justin Steele, made the Cardinals a minus 146 favorite, made Flaherty a minus 175 favorite against Davies. You take a look at this Cardinals team, and, well, J-App is certainly a guy that is willing to give up the deep fly, as he, so far this year, in his time with the St. Louis Cardinals, has given up 8 bombs in 43 and 2/3 innings, and then, while he was with the Minnesota Twins, had a very similar home runs per 9 rate. He has pitched better with the St. Louis Cardinals, posting up a 4.33 ERA. When he was with the Minnesota Twins, this was ghastly bad. He had his ERA starting to hover right around 7, and you take a look at him recently, 3 runs or fewer given up in 6 out of his last 8 starts with the St. Louis Cardinals. A far cry from his time with the Minnesota Twins, as with the Twins, he had given up 4+ runs in 4 out of his last 5 starts there. So he certainly has been able to turn it around. Going up against a guy in Justin Steele that he hasn't been great. He hasn't been terrible. At home, he's had a little bit of a tough time. Then on the road, began his season out of the bullpen. He's now been starting recently. 5.11 ERA at home, 3.10 ERA on the road, and he's given up bombs in both locations. A total of 9 home runs given up in 45 innings. His walks per 9 rate is a 4.8, so you don't necessarily have a lot of redeeming qualities there, but what you do have is a Cubs team that they've been able to do a solid job of being able to put bat to ball. You've got Rafael Ortega, who's right now hitting about a 280 for this bunch, and Frank Schwindel. He has actually been really hot. You take a look at the last 3 days, he has gone deep 9 times. He's been hitting a 364 in this time span as well. Do have a couple guys that they do need to pick it up. Nick Martini, you've got both of the Romines, Sergio Alcantara, Robinson Chirinos. You're able to throw in their Ian Happ, all hitting a 230 or lower. David Bodie as well. But I will say this, for Ian Happ, ever since the beginning of the month of August, he's actually been able to do his best work as well. A combined 13 home runs ever since the beginning of the month of August, hitting a little bit above a 300 in this time span as well. So you do like to see that. Matt Duffy's been able to give you a little bit of something as well. But then you take a look at, well, this Cubs bullpen, and it's not great. Rex Brothers, has this guy been bad ever since a actually solid beginning of the year. Beginning of the year, in his first 3 months, in an ERA right around a 3.3, and ever since the beginning of the month of July, it's been north of 7. So got that going on. Cody Hoyer has about a 2 ERA since coming over from the White Sox, and you've been able to get a little bit of something out of Adam Morgan, but Tommy Nance, Michael Rucker, these guys have not been able to get the job done. Meanwhile, you take a look at the St. Louis Cardinals, and they did have to dive deep into their bullpen yesterday, but you've had a lot of good innings being thrown by guys like TJ McFarland. Brandon Waddle is someone that they're going to be looking to for innings on the stretch. Cody Whitley as well, and these guys have been able to perform. Then you take a look at the St. Louis Cardinals with the bats, and they've been able to do a solid job coming in on a 12-game win streak, and you've got all these guys hanging between pretty much a 252 to a 265. Dylan Carlson, Harrison Bader, Yadier Molina, Nolan Arenado, Tommy Edman for Mr. Arenado. 33 home runs, north of 100 RBI. Tyler O'Neill and Paul Goldschmidt, Both have been able to give you at least 29 home runs apiece, with Paul Goldschmidt hitting like a 325 ever since the beginning of the month of July. Absolutely amazing. You've been able to get a little bit of something out of Jose Rondon, who's hitting at 265, with Mando Sosa hitting at 275 as well. The big question mark that I have with this double dip is what we are going to be able to get out of Captain Jack Flaherty, because this is a man that he has been banged up all season long. This is going to be his first start since the latter part of August 24th, and in that start he wound up giving up 4 runs in 2 innings to the Detroit Tigers. You could tell that he didn't look right, but in his first time coming off the injured list, his first 2 starts actually wound up giving up a combined 2 runs in 12 innings, so he was able to look solid there. He's going to be going up against a guy in Zach Davies that it has not been going well for, to say the least. He has given up at least 4 runs in each out of his last 3 starts, a massive victim of the deep ball, giving up right around 1.6 home runs per 9 innings, and he's not a strikeout guy that gives up 4.5 walks per 9 innings. That is not what you want at home. A 5.99 ERA compared to a 4.83 road ERA, with 20 bombs given up in 82 and 2/3 innings. Wound up setting in the Flaherty versus Davies start. The Cardinals has more around a minus 175-ish favor, more around minus 146 in App versus Steele, and Steele versus App, a 9.5 or lower. Going to be taking a look at the over, 8 or higher going to be taking a look at the under in Mr. Flaherty versus Davies. It's a 7 or lower that I'm going to be taking a look at the over on, 7.5 or higher to the under. 903, 904 on the betting board. The Pittsburgh Pirates are going to be walking the plank to Philadelphia to face off against the Philadelphia Phillies, as you've got Kyle Gibson going for the Phils. Meanwhile, to be determined is going to be going for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Currently no numbers up on this game. You got to figure that it's going to be some sort of bullpen game for the Pittsburgh Pirates, because it looks like the season is done for Bryce Wilson. Max Kranick, who it looked like was going to be starting this game, he has been pushed back to Sunday, so you've got a lot of that going on. And if that is the case, where it's bullpen game versus the Philadelphia Phillies, going to be setting the Phillies more around a minus 210-ish favorite, with an 8.5 or lower to the over, a 9 or higher to the under. Now you do take a look at Kyle Gibson, and we've seen regression come through from, and it has come through in a big way, as he has given up now at least 3 runs in each out of his last 4 starts here in the month of September, posting up a 7.48 ERA. Hasn't necessarily given up the deep ball. He's done a good job all year long, giving up right around 0.6 home runs per 9 innings. The walks aren't necessarily great, but at the same time, they're not necessarily terrible. He's just giving up a lot of contact in general. Overall, at home between his time with Philadelphia Phillies and the Texas Rangers, 211 opponent's batting average. Meanwhile, it's a 259 on the road, so that certainly is a little bit of an issue for him. And then you take a look at this Pittsburgh Pirates team, and, well, this is not a good offense, to say the least. As you've got Brian Reynolds, 24 home runs. He's made it at 290 for this team. And then your next best home run hitters, with Gregory Polanco currently on the injured list, Colin Moran and Yoshi Satsugo with 8 home runs, and Yoshi Satsugo has been with the team ever since the middle of August, so it's not necessarily great. You've got Brian Hayes, Colin Moran, along with Ben Gamble, all in between about a 250 to a 265, and then got a lot of guys in between, I would say about a 220 to 230. Anthony Alford, Cole Tucker, along with Kevin Newman. Yoshi Satsugo's in that full, but ever since getting to Pittsburgh has been much better. And then you got guys like Hoy Park, Martin Perez, Kai Tom hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. Then for the Philadelphia Phillies, we were talking about Jeff Parles, how good Bryce Harper has been ever since the beginning of the month of August going into yesterday. 17 home runs, hitting at 313. Gene Segura, he's hitting at 300 for this bunch now. You need a couple guys to pick it up. Didi Gregorius, Brad Miller, Andrew McCutcheon, all in below at 230. But if you had McCutcheon, be able to give you 24 home runs, 330 on base. Odubel Herrera's hitting right around 250. You've had some solid performances out of JT Realmuto. He's hitting right around at 260. Been a little bit banged up, but certainly has been able to get the job done for this team. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, bullpen is not great, but at the same time, it's been able to hold up. Jose Alvarado's been able to give you a couple solid innings. Ian Kennedy, over the last 2 weeks, has been good. In his first month or so with the Philadelphia Phillies, it was pretty darn awful. But then you take a look at the Pittsburgh Pirates, and David Bernard is currently on the injured list. Kyle Crick is on the injured list, which means that you've got Jason Shreve, Chris Trenton, and a whole bunch of guys that you have absolutely no faith in. So, going to be setting the Phillies right around minus 210 favorite if it is a bullpen game for the Pittsburgh Pirates. And this is a spot in which an 8.5 or lower will be taking a look at the over, and a 9 or higher, going to be taking a look at the under. 9 to 5, 9 to 6 on the betting board. The Cincinnati Reds, yes, we are on to Cincinnati, and they're going to be playing host to the Washington Nationals. Paulo Espino is going to be going for the Nets. Sonny Gray is going to be on the bump for the Reds. The Reds are finding themselves as sizable favorites in this spot, as you're going to be getting them anywhere between a minus 180 and a minus 190. Meanwhile, plus price with the Nets, anywhere between plus 160 and plus 170, with your total at 9. With the 9, unders anywhere between minus 105, minus 110. The over is anywhere between minus 110 and minus 115. Sonny Gray certainly has had his ups and his downs this year, but he's been able to give a couple good performances recently. And then you've got a guy in Paulo Espino who started out the year really strong. It has regressed on him recently, though I will say 2 runs or fewer given up in 4 out of his last 5 starts, which is something that you're able to work with, but he has clearly not been the same pitcher when he's been away from Washington, D.C. 3.26 home ERA, 5.20 road ERA, despite the fact that he's 1-0, but you take a look at him on the road, he's given up 8 bombs in 36 and a third innings, also given up 8 home runs at home, but that's across 66 and a third innings, and this is a man that does a good job of not walking you. His walks per 9 rate, that is right around about a 2.1, but then you take a look at Sonny Gray, and this is a man that has been able to find it a little bit more recently here in the month of September, posting up right around a 3.52 ERA. He's given up between 2 and 3 runs in each out of his last 4 starts. Prior to that, he had given up 3 runs or fewer in each out of his previous 4, so now he's on an 8-start streak of giving up 3 runs or fewer, which is something that you're able to work with, and he's given up a combined 5 home runs over the course of his last 9 starts as well, so he's been able to keep the ball in the yard, which has been a little bit of an issue for him, especially at home. 11 home runs given up in 66 innings at home so far this year, as a 4.64 home ERA compared to a 2.97 on the road. Then you do take a look at the Reds, and this is a bunch that they're a little bit banged up with the lineup. You've been without Jesse Winker for quite a while. You've been dealing with Taylor Naquin being on the injured list, which is why you've seen guys like Delino DeShields and Jose Barrero wind up getting starts, but you still have Jonathan India, Nick Castellanos, Joey Votto. All these guys at the top along Tyler Stevenson have at least a 360 on base, with all these guys aside from Stevenson, at least 20 home runs. You've got Eugenio Suarez, who's only hitting about $180, but he's been able to supply 27 home runs. Votto and Castellanos, both of these guys 29 plus, so you do like what you're getting there. And then with the Washington Nationals, is Juan Soto going to get the MVP? No, but at the same time, he's got like a 465 on base, depending on how things wind up going Thursday night against the Reds. He has been amazing. Lane Thomas, ever since coming over from the St. Louis Cardinals, is hitting right around 300. Got Alcides Escobar hitting right around a 290. It's actually not been the offense that's been the issue with the Nationals, especially with Josh Bell along with Soto, both giving you right around 27 home runs. Keibert Ruiz, over the last few weeks, has been able to pick it up as well. From has been just the pitching, and then with the Washington Nationals, you've been able to get a couple good innings out of Kyle Finnegan. Ryan Harper has started to regress him for the Reds. Luis Sessa has been able to give you some good innings along with Michael Givens, but at the same time, you take a look at some of the ancillary pieces in this bullpen. I was expecting a little bit more out of Lucas Sims. He's got right around a 4.6 ERA. It's been better recently, but has been a shaky year for him. Amir Garrett has just been ghastly bad as well, so I did take a look at the spot. I just think that Espino is going to wind up getting rocked on the road, and we're going to see a lot of runs. Set this one at a 9.7, so going to be going over with the Reds. I was willing to lay a relatively sizable price on the run line. Instead, I'm finding it at a plus 105 to a plus 110, so I'm going to lay the run and a half with the Reds, take that plus price on the run line to go along with this total over. 907, 908 was part of the Cubs versus Cardinals double dip, so we go to 909, 910 on the betting board. The New York Mets hit the road to face off against the Milwaukee Brewers. Eric Lauer is going to be going for the Crew. Meanwhile, Tyler McGill is going to be going for the Metropolitans. The Mets are going to be finding themselves in between plus 130 and plus 149. Meanwhile, if you're taking a look at the Crew, you're going to be getting them between minus 150 and minus 162. 7.5 to 8 is your total. On the 7.5, over is minus 115, and the under is minus 105. On the 8, the over and under anywhere between even and minus 120. So we've got a lot of volatility here, and with Eric Lauer, I do think that he's going to continue to deliver good starts for the team. Eric Lauer has been under the radar, one of the better pitchers out there in the big leagues really ever since the All-Star break. Overall, a 3.03 ERA. Has given up right around 1.2 home runs per 9 innings so far this year, but he has allowed a combined 3 runs in his last 4 starts, 5 runs in his last 5 starts. The last time we wound up giving up more than 3 runs in a start, you have to go all the way back to June 14th. So this is a guy that has come out night in and night out and has done a magnificent job giving up 3 runs or fewer in each out of his last 14 starts. He's been able to do a little bit of a better job of being able to keep the walks down, as well as he's given up on a walks per 9 rate right around a 2.2 ever since the All-Star break. So that is something that you do like to see. And then with Mr. McGill, he wound up having some very good starts with the Mets, and things have not went as well for him recently, giving up at least 4 runs in now 3 out of his last 5 starts. Things are certainly crashing back to earth. He has an ERA of right around a 6.5 ever since the beginning of the month of August, so that is not necessarily so great, and the big reason why he has given up a combined 12 home runs over the course of his last 8 starts. He's backed up by a bullpen that you can tell it's starting to get a little bit more taxed. You've got Miguel Castro, who's starting to regress a little bit. Brad Hand has been a mystery all year long. Aaron Loup has been absolutely amazing, but then you've got Trevor May, who's had his ups and his downs for the Milwaukee Brewers. We did wind up seeing this bullpen get completely torched yesterday, but you still have Devin Williams along Gallant, Josh Hader, both of these guys, you got to feel like are going to be able to get the job done. I do think that you're going to be able to get a little bit of something out of Hunter Strickland. And then you take a look at this Milwaukee Brewers lineup, and it has been scuffling a little bit, but William Adames is back. I think that that's going to be able to help out with the struggles that we've seen over the last week. And then we've got a lot of guys hitting just between a 242 and a 255. Lorenzo Cain, Christian Yelich, Eduardo Escobar, Luis Urias. You're able to throw in there Tyrone Taylor. So list goes on and on with that regard. And then you got Avisail Garcia, who's been able to go deep 29 times so far this year. Eduardo Escobar, he's supplied 28 home runs. So you got a little bit of something there. Colton Wong has been able to hit about a 275. So a lot of guys that aren't necessarily great hitters, but at the same time, they're doing just enough to be able to get the job done. And then you take a look at the New York Mets, and you got two guys that are able to go yard for you. That'd be Javi Baez along with Pete Alonso. Both of these guys north of 30 home runs. Both of these guys are hitting in that pocket of between a 260 and a 265. Then you've got Jonathan VR, Jeff McNeil, both hitting right around 255 themselves. Brandon Nimmo's back. He's hitting a 300. You've got J.D. Davis back as well. Has not necessarily been the same since coming off the injured list, but still hitting right around a 285 for the year. But I just take a look at the regression of Mr. McGill and how sneaky good Eric Lauer's been. I wound up setting the Brewers as a relatively sizable favorite in this spot. I wound up setting them personally at a minus 151, so right on the borderline there. But when it comes to the run line, I needed at least a plus 125 to be able to take a shot. Seeing this between plus 130 and as good as a plus 135, so that's where I'm going to be taking my shot. Set the total also at an 8.8 because I do think that McGill going to be giving up some runs along with this Brewers bullpen. So going over, and I'm going to be going with the run line of the Crew. 9-11, 9-12 on the betting board. You got the San Francisco Giants hitting the road to face off against the Colorado Rockies. Peter Lambert is going to be going for the Rockies. Meanwhile, Alex Wood is going to be on the bump for the Giants. Only DraftKings has a number up on this game, seeing the Giants as a minus 195 favorite. Meanwhile, if you're taking a look at the Rockies, you're going to be getting them at a plus 165. 11.5 is your total with the over and under, both at minus 110. And I just can have no faith here in Peter Lambert. He has made 6 relief appearances since coming off of Tommy John surgery. They have amounted to 17 and 2/3 innings. He's pretty much an opener du jour, and then you're going to be getting the Colorado Rockies bullpen, which is not too great. And even when Lambert was up at the big league level in 2019, he had a couple of good starts, and even with a couple good starts, he then wound up having overall a 7.25 ERA across 19 starts. I think that this is a spot in which he winds up just getting completely taken apart, and then you wind up getting into a bullpen with guys like Lucas Gilbreth, Daniel Bard, a couple guys who are able to give you a couple solid innings, but then you wind up getting into a bunch of which they wound up having to play extra innings yesterday, and they're just not going to be able to hold up at the point of attack. Now, you do take a look at the Colorado Rockies as a collective. They're hitting right around a 280 at home. That is the best mark out there in the big leagues. And Remy Altapia is back. He wound up having a nice home run yesterday. He's been hitting above a 300 at Coors. You've got Trevor Story, who's hitting nearly a 300 at Coors Field. CJ Cron, out of his 27 home runs so far this year, 18 of them have come at home. Garrett Hampson is hitting right around 300 in Colorado as well. So that's a good sign. But then you've also got a San Francisco Giants team, which is locked, loaded, and ready for bear. You just take a look at all these guys. They're able to take you deep. It's absolutely insane. All these guys have between, I believe, right around 26 to right around 13 home runs. Evan Longoria, Austin Dickerson, Darren Ruff, Lamonte Wade, Wilmer Flores, Buster Posey, Brandon Crawford, Brandon Belt, Mike Yastrzemski. It is absolutely ridiculous. And pretty much everyone aside from Yastrzemski and to a lesser extent Austin Dickerson hitting above a 255 for this bunch. So you've got a lot there with the Giants. They did have to dive into their bullpen a lot yesterday, but at the same time, this is a bullpen that is in the top 3 with regards to ERA. They wound up doing a good job of holding up at the point of attack yesterday. You got to figure that someone like Zach Liddell might be able to come back for the team. Dominic Leon is able to give you some good innings along Jarlin Garcia, who's you're able to use for multiple innings as well. And then you take a look at Alex Wood, and it has been a little bit up and down as I was talking about with Jeff Parles for him, but I do think that he's going to be able to come out, give you a relatively solid performance. Overall, a 3.99 ERA for the season, but he's actually been relatively comparable home to road. 3.86 home ERA, 4.18 road ERA on the road and at home, giving up 7 home runs apiece now, 77 innings at home, 51 and 2/3 innings on the road, and opponents starting at 278 off of them. So I do think that you might wind up seeing a little bit of higher scoring game, but in this spot, I wound up saying the San Francisco Giants as a very sizable favorite at a minus 199 on the money line. On the run line, I'm willing to lay up to about a minus 135. If you're taking a look at the Giants run line at DraftKings, you're finding that at a minus 125, so that's where I'm going to be looking in this spot. And when it comes to this total, this is one in which I wound up setting at an 11.3. So at an 11, I'd be in on the over. At the 11.5 that we're currently seeing at DraftKings, I'd be taking a little bit more of a look at the under. 9.13, 9.14 on the betting board. you've got yourself the Arizona Diamondbacks playing host to the LA Dodgers. Going for the Dodgers, you've got Mr. Tony Gonsolin, and Humberto Castellanos is going to be going for the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks are finding themselves as underdogs in this spot of anywhere between a plus 185 and a plus 195. Meanwhile, with the Dodgers, anywhere between minus 212 and minus 225 is your price. 9.5 to 10 is your total. On the 10, unders anywhere between minus 115 and minus 120. Overs between even and minus 105. On the 9.5, overs minus 115 and the under is minus 105. And I'll just give you guys a run line right now. You're finding the Dodgers anywhere between minus 133 and minus 140 on the run line. I was willing to lay up to a minus 140 on that Dodgers run line, so we're going to be taking a shot there with Tony Gonsolin. I recognize that you're probably not going to get a lot of length out of him. He's went north of 4 2/3 innings just twice so far this year, but in his small doses, he's been relatively solid, giving up 5 home runs over the course of 46 innings. Now, the walks are an issue. He is giving up a little bit north of 6 walks per 9 innings, but it doesn't matter as much when he's not necessarily going as deep into games that he's backed up by a Dodgers bullpen that is number 2 in the big leagues with regards to ERA. Now, they unexpectedly got used up quite a bit because Max Scherzer was only able to go 5 innings yesterday, so guys like David Price, Phil Bickford, Joe Kelly, they wound up getting used up, but at the same time, you are going to have a few guys that are going to be available like a Corey Knebel, and this is a Dodgers lineup in which it is very fearsome. You've got a whole bunch of guys that have at least 20 home runs for you. Trey Turner down for what? Justin Turner down for what? Chris Taylor has been a little bit banged up recently. Will Smith is able to get jiggy with it. A.J. Pollock is now off the injured list. He's a little bit below 20 home runs, but has been able to do a good job of being able to supply the boom for this team. Mookie Betts, list goes on and on. Even Albert Pujols, as long as he's been a member of the LA Dodgers, has been able to do some nice work for you as well. And then you just take a look at what you're able to get on the flip side for the Arizona Diamondbacks, and you've got nobody with more than 12 home runs so far this year. That'd be Ketel Marte of the Marte Parte. He's been doing a solid job of being able to reach base, hitting right around 320, so you give him some kudos there, but at the same time, you've got a lot of guys like a Carson Kelly, a Josh Rojas, Pavin Smith, all hitting 11 home runs so far this year, and you've got these 3 guys all hitting between about a 259 to a 269, which is well and good, but at the same time, you just need a little bit more out of this offense. You take a look at the Arizona Diamondbacks bullpen, and it is not good to say the least. They've been using guys like Taylor Widener and Jake Faria, guys that began the year as starters out of the bullpen, and they just have not acclimated to their roles. Noe Ramirez wound up getting used up yesterday. J.B. Wendell since coming over from the Oakland A's has been up and down. Brett DeGeis has north of a 7 ERA. I think that this is going to be a doomsday scenario for the Arizona Diamondbacks, even though Humberto Castellanos actually has not necessarily been too bad as a starter. With Mr. Castellanos, you take a look at it, he's got a 4.11 ERA. That might be the best ERA of any starter for the team. He has given up 3 runs or fewer in 4 out of his last 5 starts, and the team is actually 4-1 in his last 5 starts. Only 3 of these have come in the month of September. He's been up and down, been a little bit banged up, has done a good job of being able to control the walks as well. His walks per 9 rate is right around 3. Big thing with him is that he is giving up quite a few home runs. His home runs per 9 rate that hovers right around about a 1.3 to 1.4, not necessarily much of a swing and miss guy. So I do think that the Dodgers are going to be able to get to him. You want to know with the LA Dodgers as well. This is a team that they have played, I believe now, 8 overs in their last 34 games. So they have been very much an under team, and I've got it set accordingly here. I wound up saying this all at 8.7, so going to be going under along with the Dodgers on the road line. 9:15, 9:16 on the betting board. You've got the Atlanta Braves hitting the road to face off against the Slam Diego Padres. For the Padres, it is to be determined, and despite the fact that we've got a to-be-determined starter for the San Diego Padres, with Max Fried going on the other side for the Atlanta Braves, DraftKings has this as the Padres being a minus 125 favorite at a plus 105 for the Atlanta Braves. We were talking about this with Jeff a little bit earlier. Total of 8 over and under, both at minus 110. I don't have a line currently because I just don't know what the Padres are going to be doing in this spot, but I can tell you right now, I'm certainly going to be setting the Atlanta Braves as a favorite. So if you're able to get a plus 105, I will advise a play, unless if the Padres wind up somehow, some way cloning Bob Gibson in his prime, and they wind up throwing him out here, and they wind up signing him to a contract, and, well, yeah, that's not going to be happening. So we've got that going on. You've got Max Fried, who's been able to do a relatively solid job for the Atlanta Braves all season long, and also keep in mind that there's going to be a suspended game that's going to be picked up with the Padres leading like 5-4. They wound up resuming this after it wound up being in like the 5th inning in which they suspended it, so you're going to have a little bit of something funky going on there, but with that said, for this fresh game, you do have Mr. Fried, who's been able to do a good job all year long of not getting taken deep, right around 0.9 home runs, give it up per 9 innings. You take a look at what he's been able to do recently, and it's been pretty stinking good. here in the month of September. He has given up 3 runs or fewer in all 4 of his starts at 2.16 ERA this month, and you really have to go back to July 23rd, the last time he wound up giving up more than 3 runs in a start. So 10 straight starts in which he has given up 3 runs or fewer. You take a look at him on the road, 3.53 road ERA. He has given up 10 home runs over the course of 74 innings, which is a tad high, but by and large has been able to keep down the walks as well. And for the Padres, this is a bunch that they wound up having to go into their bullpen quite a bit after Yu Darvish wound up getting lit up quite a bit. So you're going to be dealing with a bunch of guys that are very tired, to say the least. Emilio Pagan has been starting to fail to see. Mark Melancon has been used in back-to-back days. Pierce Johnson has just been used like a workhorse along with Craig Salmon. Then you do take a look at the Padres, and you've been able to get quite a bit of something out of Fernando Tatis Jr. 40 home runs, 285 batting average. That's pretty rock solid. You do have Austin Supernola. You're able to throw in there someone like a Jake Cronenworth, Eric Hosmer, all these guys in between about a 260 to a 275. So you've had a little bit of something there. Manny Machado is able to give you 24 home runs. He's hitting right around 275. He won a pitch inning yesterday. Adam Frazier, though, ever since coming over from the Pittsburgh Pirates, he just hasn't been able to make contact the way that he did in Pittsburgh, hitting right around a 265-ish. So that's been a little bit of an issue. And then you take a look at what you're able to get out of this Braves bullpen, and it's actually been relatively solid. You've had Tyler Matzek really be able to come on here in the second half of the season. Certainly did not wind up doing the world's greatest job yesterday with Jacob Webb, who had been very good going into yesterday, giving up some runs, but even someone like a Luke Jackson has been able to do a solid job for this team as well. And then you did take a look at this offense, and you've got a whole lot of guys that are supplying a whole bunch of boom, as you've got all these guys with between 29 and 33 home runs. Adam Duvall, Austin Riley, Ozzie Albies, Freddie Freeman. It is absolutely insane. With Riley and Freeman, both of these guys are hitting right around 300. Dansby Swanson has 26 home runs. He's hitting about a 250 for this bunch. Orde Soler, ever since coming over from the Kansas City Royals, he's hitting a 260. He's been able to give you 24 home runs so far this year, so you've got an Atlanta Braves lineup that is very solid. I've got to think that if it's going to be Max Fried against something like a bullpen game, I'd probably be setting the Braves as like a minus 135, a minus 140-ish favorite, and this would be a spot in which I would be taking it over. If the total is set at an 8 or lower like we're seeing right now, and an 8.5 or higher, then I'd be taking a look at the under. Initial thoughts there. Need to know the plan of attack for the Padres, but that is where I'm leaning there. 917, 918 on the betting board. The Baltimore Orioles are going to be playing us to the Walker, Texas Rangers, as you've got Spencer Howard going for the Rangers. Alexander Wells is going to be on the bump for the Baltimore Orioles. The Orioles are finding themselves as a slight favorite / a slight underdog, finding the Orioles as bad as minus 110, as good as minus 101. Meanwhile, with the Rangers, you're going to be finding them as bad as minus 110, as good as a minus 106, with your total on this game anywhere between 9 and 9.5. On the 9.5, unders anywhere between minus 115 and minus 120, overs anywhere between even a minus 105. On the 9, overs anywhere between minus 115 and minus 120, and the unders anywhere between even a minus 105. The odds makers have this as a relative pick'em game. I do not. I just have zero faith whatsoever in the Baltimore Orioles. Now, Spencer Howard, someone I don't have a lot of faith in either, but with that said, you take a look at Alexander Wells, and it has not necessarily been going well for him, and that's putting it very politely. Meanwhile, Spencer Howard has an ERA that hovers right around 6 as well, so you've got a nice duel going on here with Mr. Wells, a 7.96 ERA. You take a look at him recently, and he's given up at least 4 runs in now 3 out of his last 5 total appearances, because some of these are not starts, and he's given up at least 3 runs in 4 out of his last 6 overall. This is a man that's given up 8 home runs in 31 2/3 innings, and for Spencer Howard, he's only given up 2 home runs since coming over to the Rangers with a 9.22 ERA, overall a 6.86 ERA. He's given out right around 5 walks per 9 innings so far this season, so you've really got some poop there. And then you take a look at the Orioles. Their bullpen is not quite as good as the Texas Rangers. With the Rangers, Spencer Patton has been regressing a little bit, but he's been able to give you a couple good innings. Along with Joe Barlow, who's got a sub-2 ERA. Joel Cotton has been able to come along and be able to give you a little bit of something. And then for the Baltimore Orioles, Cole Sulzer has really been your main reliever for the team. You've been able to get a little bit of something out of Tyler Wells from time to time. Dylan Tate has been able to come in and hold down the fort, but Tanner Scott is currently on the injured list, which means that Marco C. Plan, Fernando Abad, Mike Baumann, you're going to be looking at these guys. But if there is a redeeming quality with the Baltimore Orioles, they do have a couple guys towards the top of the lineup that will be able to do a good job for you. Cedric Mullins, Ryan Mountcastle, both of these guys have between 29 and 31 home runs. You got with Mountcastle, Austin the Say's Kid, Trey Boo Moo Mancini. You're able to throw in there Richie Martin, all guys in between about a 252, 260. Anthony Santander's been able to give you a little bit of something as well. With Mullins, he's sitting at 300, but then you've got Kelvin Gutierrez, Austin Wins, Domingo Leyba, Jahmai Jones, Ryan McKenna, DJ Stewart, whole bunch of guys hitting at 210 or lower. And for the Texas Rangers, this bunch going into yesterday, 3 runs or fewer in 8 straight games. It's just absolutely deplorable. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is able to hit about a 270 for you. Got a couple guys hitting between about a 255 to more like a 267, and Andy Ibanez, Nate Lowe, you're able to throw in there Willie Calhoun, Yoni Hernandez, along with Adolis Garcia. They're in between about a 242 to 250 with Garcia. 30 home runs, but that's really been drying up for him. DJ Turn It Up Peters has about 8 home runs over the last 3 days, but sitting right around the Mendoza line of 200 as well. So you've got a really grody situation here. You've got a terrible offense with the Texas Rangers with a little bit of pitching. You've got a Baltimore Orioles team that leads the league in ERA by a country mile, so that makes for an interesting handicap. When it comes to the Rangers, I set them as a minus 126 favorite, and I set this all at 10.2, so we're going to be looking at the Rangers and the over in what is really a butt-ugly matchup. This is a little bit less of a butt-ugly matchup. 919, 920 on the betting board. The New York Yankees hit the road face-off against the Boston Red Sox. Nathan Eovaldi is going to be going for the Sox. Garrett Cole is going to be on the bump for the Yankees. Yankees between minus 120 and minus 112 favorites. Meanwhile, if you're taking a look at the Sox, anywhere between even money and plus 105 is your price, 9 is your total, over is anywhere between even money and minus 115. Meanwhile, the under is anywhere between minus 105 and minus 120. And for Nathan Eovaldi, he has been able to do a great job of being able to limit hard contact at home. On the road, it's been a little bit of a different story, as so far this year, when it comes to Nathan Eovaldi, he's given up overall about 0.7-ish home runs per 9 innings, but at home, 2.99 ERA across 18 starts. He's allowed 5 homers in 111 and a third innings, so that has been very sterling. At home as well, he's been giving you right around 9.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. On the road, that's actually a little bit better, but opponents are hitting only a 233 off of him at home compared to more like a 269 on the road. Then you take a look at Garrett Cole. With regards to strikeouts per 9, he is hovering right around 11.5. He is towards the top of the big leagues when it comes to Robbie Ray among qualifying pitchers. On the road, he's had a little bit of a tough time of it when he's been facing off against the Boston Red Sox. Overall, so far this year, a 5.06 ERA in 3 starts against Boston, but it's actually been a little bit better away from home than at Yankee Stadium. 9-4 record in his 14 road starts. Has given up 11 homers in 88 and a third innings, but opponents are hitting just a 210 off of him. And this is a Yankees bunch in which it's been a little bit hodgepodge when it comes to the lineup. You've seen a couple guys be able to bust out with the bat. Giancarlo Stanton, along with Aaron Judge and Joey Gallo, all have at least 30 home runs for the team, but with Gallo, Kyle Higashioka, Gary Sanchez, Brett Gardner, Rudad Odor, whenever he's been out there, 220 or lower is their batting average, but got quite a few guys starting to supply a little bit more for the team. Anthony Rizzo, along with Luke Voigt, are in between about a 242, 250. Both of these guys have some power. Gio Urshela, Tyler Wade, DJ LeMahieu, along with Mr. Stanton, hitting between about a 262, 270, so got some redeeming qualities there. And then with the Boston Red Sox, you're just littered with a bunch of guys that do a solid job of being able to reach base for you, and a lot of guys that, in general, are able to take you deep. Rafael Devers has really been the mainstay of this team. 105 RBI, 34 home runs, hitting right around 275, but then you've got Kyle Schwarber, JD Martinez, Hunter Renfroe, Bobby Dahlbeck, Xander Bogaerts, all with between 23 and 31 home runs, with Renfroe throwing their Kyle Schwarber, and you've even got a couple guys like a Christian Vasquez who are hitting between about a 262, 270 overall for the year. JD Martinez is hitting more like a 285, so got a lot of good things when it comes to this lineup. The Red Sox have been able to have Garrett Cole's number, but I do think that Cole is going to be able to give you a good start in this one. And with the Yankees, bullpen has been a little bit hit or miss, but Aroldis Chapman seems to be reining it in after he wound up really struggling ever since the beginning of the summertime. Domingo Germán is someone that might be used as a super reliever. Joely Rodriguez, Wandy Peralta, they're able to give you something. Luis Severino's coming out of the bullpen as well. Then with the Boston Red Sox, all hands on deck for this team as well. They have converted guys like Garrett Richards out of the bullpen. Ansel Robles has really been able to pick it up after he had a terrible start to his Boston Red Sox career over the last 15 days. He has not allowed a single run in his last 6 appearances. That's a very good sign for this team. Darwinzon Hernandez able to give you a little bit of something, but when it comes down to it, I just think that Garrett Cole is going to be able to come out and dominate, so I wound up setting the Yankees as a minus 129 favorite in the spot. Also made this all 8.4, so I'm going to be diving under along with the Yankees. 921, 922 on the betting board is the Chicago White Sox in the road face-off against the Cleveland Indians. We've got a rare sighting. Shane Bieber fever is taking the mound for the first time in 3 months for the Indians. Meanwhile, Dylan Cease and Decease going to be on the bump for the White Sox. We've got no numbers currently up on this game. I saw an initial line at DraftKings with the White Sox being minus 145 and the Indians being plus 125. I certainly would be willing to take that. Now, I personally did set the White Sox as a slight favorite of minus 116. I made this all 9.2 and 9 or lower. Going to be taking a look at the over and 9.5 to the under just because with Shane Bieber. He wound up making a pair of relief appearances. He gave up something like 4 runs in 6 innings in his relief work, so you've got to feel like he's going to be pretty much something like an opener in this spot for the Cleveland Indians. I am not expecting the Shane Bieber that we've seen, so I'm not even going to rattle off the numbers just because, well, this is a completely different guy. And then you take a look at Dylan Cease, and this is a big handicap here. The fact that he has been significantly worse on the road than he has been at home. 3.22 home ERA, a 5.02 road ERA, and on the road, he has actually done a better job of being able to limit the deep ball. 8 home runs given up in 75 and a third innings, 12 bombs in 81 innings given up on the road. But the fact that the opponents are hitting a 243 off of him on the road compared to a 203 at home, that is something of significance. When you take a look at the Chicago White Sox, you've got quite a few guys that are doing a good job of being able to get on base in general for you. Adam Engel, Lurie Garcia, Jose Abreu, Yoel Moncada, all guys hitting between about a 254 to a 270, with Mr. Abreu, he ranks in the top 3 when it comes to RBI, wound up having 10 home runs in the month of August. You've been able to get a little bit of something out of guys like Andrew Vaughn, Gavin Sheets, Cesar Hernandez, all these guys that are hitting between about a 231 to a 241, with Vaughn and Hernandez. Both are able to give you some homers. Tim Anderson sitting above a 3, and then you've got Luis Robert who's hitting more like a 350. It's been absolutely amazing to watch him work. And then with Yasmani Grandal, ever since he's come off the injury list, he's been averaging a home run every about 8 at-bats. It has been insane. And then you take a look at the Cleveland Indians, and you've got a pair of guys with north of 30 homers in Jose Ramirez along with Franmil Reyes. With both of these guys, they're hitting in the pocket of about a 259 to a 265. You've also got Miles Straw, ever since coming to Cleveland, hitting a 265 for this bunch. Now, you've got quite a few guys that they need to pick it up with their batting averages. You've got Owen Miller along with Bobby Bradley, Bradley Zimmer, Oscar Mercado, all hitting a 225 or lower. Roberto Perez hitting more like a $150. That is not good. Austin Hedges is hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. Andres Jimenez is not giving you a whole heck of a lot. Yu Chang along with Ernie Clement are both hitting right around at 230. So got some issues there. And for the Cleveland Indians, this is a bullpen that they have been dealing with a lot of guys that have gone on the injured list, like a Nick Sandlin. Blake Parker is back for the team, which is good, but Emmanuel Clase being used for 21 pitches in Game 2 of the doubleheader yesterday, probably is knocking him out for today. Meanwhile, for the Chicago White Sox, they did wind up using up Liam Hendricks and Craig Kimbrell for north of 20 pitches, so it's going to be interesting to see how the bullpen use is going to be here. I think that you're going to see a pair of tighter bullpens, which is why I did wind up saying the soda at a 9.2, so a 9 or lower. I'm going to be taking a look at the over 9.5 or higher to the under, and I wound up saying the White Sox as a minus 116 favorite. 923, 924 on the betting board. The Kansas City Royals hit the road face off against the Detroit Tigers. Casey Mize is going to be going for the Tigres. Carlos Hernandez is going to be on the bump for the Royals. The Royals are finding themselves as very slight underdogs of anywhere between minus 102 and minus 105. Meanwhile, if you take a look at the Tigres, finding them as bad as a minus 115, as good as a minus 105, 9 being your total. Unders anywhere between minus 115 and minus 120. The overs anywhere between even and minus 105. And with Carlos Hernandez, the Royals are 8-2 in his last 10 starts. Now, he got touched up quite a bit in his last start. The Royals were really throwing him off his focus. He was pitching every 5 days. They wound up pushing back his start a little bit, and you could tell that he was not the same. And he was supposed to start a few days ago, and that wound up getting pushed back due to rain. So that is something that you do want to take a look at. Hernandez doesn't seem to respond very well to changes in his, I guess you could call it preparation, but prior to the start in which he wound up giving up 7 runs to the Oakland A's, he had given up 2 runs or fewer in really 8 out of his last 9 appearances in general, so this is someone that has been rolling very recently and done a good job of keeping on the deep ball. 7 home runs overall given up in 80 and 2/3 innings. And you take a look at him on the road, a 260 road ERA compared to a 490 home ERA. Then you've got Casey Mize, who I figure is going to be like an opener plus for this team. You take a look at his last 3 appearances, 3 innings, 2 innings, 3 innings, not necessarily because he's been touched up, because over the course of his last 8 innings, giving up 4 runs, and he hasn't given up any homers and just 2 walks in this time span. So you know that the Tigers have him on a very strict innings limit. And when it comes to the Detroit Tigers, this is a bunch of what you do have quite a few guys getting on base. They haven't been able to supply a lot of power recently. You've got Jonathan Scope, Robbie Grossman, Eric Haas, all giving you between 20 and 23 home runs, but these guys have been slipping a little bit. But with Grossman along Jameer Candelario, both of these guys between a 350 and a 355 on base. Akil Baddoo along with Victor Reyes, both hitting between about a 250 to a 260. Derek Hill's been able to hit in that neighborhood as well. And then Jonathan Scope is hitting a 275. And for the Detroit Tigers, This is a well-rested bullpen that has actually been the top 10 with regards to ERA ever since the All-Star break. Michael Fulmer has actually been very good for this team. Jose Cicerno is currently on the injured list, but Gregory Soto, Jason Foley, these guys have been able to do a solid job. Then you take a look at the Kansas City Royals, and this team, I believe, is now 6th when it comes to bullpen ERA. Ever since the All-Star break, you've been able to get some really good innings out of guys like Scott Barlow and Jake Brents, Josh Samount, Domingo Tapia. They've been able to come in, and they've been able to hold down the fort. And then you've got a guy in Salvador Perez that is going for the home run title for this year. It's been absolutely amazing to watch him do what he's doing as he, along with Andrew Benintendi, Whit Merrifield, lying between a 275 to a 280, but with Perez, his 115 RBI, leads the league, 46 home runs, has been absolutely amazing. You've got Adalberto Mondesi, he's hitting right around 265. Kyle Isbell out there in the outfield, he's hitting at 280, and then you've got Nicky Lopez hitting above a 300. So, got a lot of guys that are doing their job for this team with the Royals. With the way that Hernandez has been pitching, and Casey Mize being on a little bit of an innings restriction, I set them as a slight favorite of minus 108, so I'm going to be riding with the Royals in this spot. I do think that it's going to be a well-pitched game. Set this all at 8.3. So going under along with the Royals. 925, 926 on the betting board. You've got the Toronto Blue Jays hitting the road to face off against the Minnesota Twins. Bailey Ober is going to be going for the Twins. Meanwhile, you've got Jose Barrios going for the Toronto Blue Jays. The Blue Jays are anywhere between minus 145 and minus 160 favorites. Meanwhile, if you're looking at the Twins, that is anywhere between a plus 135 to a plus 142. 9 is your total. Over and under, both at minus 110. And when it comes to Bailey Ober, he's been able to land some very good starts recently, but the big bugaboo with him is that he gets taken deep quite a bit, and this is going to be a little bit of a revenge spot for Jose Barrios because, as we know, he wound up getting traded away from the Minnesota Twins earlier this year. But you take a look at Ober, 19 home runs given up in 87 innings, also 19 walks given up in 87 innings, so he's been able to do a good job of being able to keep the ball down, but at the same time, you certainly do have your little bit of issue when it comes to the fact that he has been walking a bunch of guys. When you take a look at Ober and what he's been able to do at home, he's made 9 home starts so far this year, and he's posted up a 4.43 ERA. He doesn't necessarily have demonstrative home and road splits, so that is something that is very positive for him. Meanwhile, you take a look at Mr. Barrios, and throughout his career, he'd actually been a better pitcher in Minnesota than on the road. The last few years, it's really been relatively even with regards to his home and road splits. You take a look at him this year, 3.20 home ERA whenever he's pitched in Minnesota, along with Toronto, 3.75 road ERA, so you don't necessarily have anything big there. 10 home runs in 81 and 2/3 innings given up on the road, 11 bombs in 98 and a third innings given up at home, so you take a look at it with the innings factored in, it's relatively equal. And then you've got a Toronto Blue Jays team that is doing a very good job of being able to supply the boom. Vlad Guerrero Jr. in the running for the Triple Crown, hitting at 3.25. He and Marcus Semien both have 40-plus home runs so far this year, so that's been absolutely insane. Bo Bichette, along with Teoscar Hernandez, both hitting above a 290. Both of these guys between 26 and 30 home runs. Lourdes Gurriel has been one of the hottest hitters on the planet, really, over the last 30 days. You take a look at his last 30 days, and he's been hitting a 340. He's been able to supply 7 home runs over the course of his last 100 at-bats, so he's been able to do a very good job for the team. Randall Grichuk has north of 20 home runs. Then with the Minnesota Twins, you do have a lot of guys that they do need to pick it up with their betting average, as Ben Rhodefit, along with Max Kepler, Jake Cave, you're able to throw in there Miguel Sano, Brent Rooker, and Dalton Simmons. List goes on and on of guys hitting at 225 or lower, but for Sano, right around at 335 on base ever since the beginning of the month of July, and he's been able to supply the deep ball. He's given you 29 home runs so far this year. Byron Buxton, since coming off the injured list, it has been a little bit rocky from. Overall, has been hitting right around a 290-ish for the season, but you take a look at him over the last 3 days, he's hitting more like a 225. Orde Polanco, though, he's got north of 30 homers. He's hitting at 275. Josh Donaldson, 24 bombs, right around at 350 on base and a 250 batting average. Mitch Garver is able to give you a little bit of something as well. And then with both of these bullpens, they certainly do have a couple of trials and tribulations. Adam Simber has really looked solid for the Toronto Blue Jays recently. Ryan Baruki is able to give you a little bit of something, and Jordan Romano has been able to do a good job. And then with the Minnesota Twins, it's really been a few guys that have been unheralded, and guys like Luke Farrell, Ralph Garza Jr. doing the best job for this team. Alex Colomé has certainly been up and down. Danny Colombe, it has really regressed for him. Nick Vincent, he's got a .142 ERA, just hasn't had a lot of use, and he's been just up and down with the team in general. I do take a look at the spot, and I do think that the Blue Jays should be a favorite. I was only willing to set them as a minus 138 favorite. I actually like the way that Ober is pitching, so with the plus 140 I'm seeing right now, I'm going to take a shot here on the Minnesota Twins at a little bit of a revenge spot for both sides. When it comes to this total, set it at a 9.1, so going over along the Twins, 927, 928 on the betting board. The Seattle Mariners hit the road to face off against the LA Angels. Logan Gilbert is going to be going for the Angels. I was seeing Jose Suarez a little bit earlier for the LA Angels. Currently, the betting board says to be determined, so we do not have any numbers up on this game. If it is Mr. Suarez against Logan Gilbert, this will be a spot in which I set the Mariners as a minus 134 favorite. That will make a plus 134 on the LA Angels, and with this total, going to be looking at an over with an 8.5 or lower with a 9 or higher. I'd be taking a look at the under with the LA Angels. It has been really bad for this offense. They have scored the fewest runs per game of any team in the month of September. They are second in the American League with regards to fewest runs per game ever since the All-Star break. And for the Angels, the bullpen is not even necessarily good for the team as well. Andrew Wantz is someone that is an ERA that's hovering right around a 5.5. You haven't been able to get a lot of guys like Jimmy Ergoch. Steve Cishek has been okay, and Rossio Iglesias, a great closer, but how are you going to be able to get the ball to him? Now, you take a look at Mr. Jose Suarez, and he's actually been able to lend some good starts recently for the LA Angels. This is a man that has given up 3 runs or fewer in each out of his last 6 starts. He's kept the ball down, giving up just 1 home run over the course of his last 4 starts. He has been giving up a couple walks. His walks per 9 rate is hovering right around at 3.4, and you take a look at what he's been able to do at home versus on the road, and he's actually been better on the road with a 4.34 home ERA compared to a 3.18 road ERA, giving up 4 home runs in 37 and a third innings at home. Meanwhile, 6 bombs in 51 innings on the road, and the big thing for him is that he has been able to do a good job of being able to pick up a couple more swings and misses recently as well, so that is something that you do like to see. Meanwhile, with Logan Gilbert, he was doing really, really well, on which the Seattle Mariners, I believe, won 11 straight out of his starts. Then they wound up losing 4 straight. They have now won 3 out of his last 4, and he has looked tremendous down the stretch. He has given up a combined 5 runs over the course of his last 4 starts. He has reined it in, giving up just 3 walks in that time span as well. His strikeouts per 9 rate is actually relatively solid as well at right around 10. Now, the key for the Seattle Mariners, getting enough offense, because this is a team that they are very light hitting when it comes to batting average. You got J.P. Crawford hitting right around 265. Ty France is hitting at 290 ever since he came over from the Houston Astros. Abraham Torres hitting right around 275. Mitch Haniger is hitting at 250, but then you've got Kyle Seager, Jared Kelenic, Dylan Moore, Jake Fraley. You're able to throw in there Oremama Lois, Jake Bowers, Dylan Moore, Cal Raleigh. List goes on and on of guys hitting a 220 or lower. But with Seager, along with Mitch Haniger, both of these guys between 34 and 35 home runs, which has been very helpful. And then you've got a Seattle Mariners bullpen that continues to be lights out. They had to go to quite a few guys yesterday, but nobody pitched more than 18 pitches. So Casey Sadler, Drew Steckenrider, all these guys are likely going to be available. Yohan Ramirez has really been able to step up to the plate for this team. And then you've got an Angels bunch that they are really struggling at the plate. Shohei Ohtani has been able to give this team 45 home runs, but ever since really the end of the month of July, he's been hitting right around the middle line of a 200. Jared Walsh has 27 home runs. Just 5 of them have come post All-Star break, but he, along with Phil Gosselin, both hitting right around 270 along David Fletcher. But Fletcher, ever since the beginning of the month of August, hitting right around 240. You've got Brandon Marsh hitting about a 250, along with Shohei Ohtani. He's hitting more like a 255, but certainly it has been regressing for this bunch. So if it does wind up being the pitching matchup of Mr. Gilbert versus Suarez, setting the Mariners as a minus 134 favorite, and an 8.5 or lower, going to be taking a look at the over. A 9 or higher, going to be taking a look at the under. We go to my New York Post play today, as we've got 9:29, 9:30 on the betting board. The Oakland Athletics are going to be playing host to the Houston Astros. Zach Greinke is going to be going for the Astros. Meanwhile, you've got Mr. Frankie Montas, who's going to be going for the Oakland A's. Right now, the only line that we are seeing is at DraftKings, and DraftKings has the A's as a minus 115 favorite, a minus 105 on the Astros. It is your total over and under, both at minus 110. I fully anticipate money coming in on the Houston Astros. I personally wound up saying the Oakland A's more on a minus 125 to a minus 130 favorite, so I want to make them the New York Post play today, because this is a fade of Zach Greinke. Greinke has been absolutely terrible recently for the Houston Astros. You take a look at his last 3 starts, and he has been getting just absolutely pummeled upon, as he has given up 6, 8, and 5 runs. One of those was unearned in his second start, but overall, he has given up 18 earned runs, 19 in total over his last 3 starts, and he has just been giving up the deep balls left, right, and sideways. This is a man that has given up at least 1 home run in each out of his last 4 starts. He has been a little bit better on the road than he has been at home so far this year, with a 3.45 road ERA, but you can tell that regression has set in, and it's set in hard. He's been coming in and off of the injured list as well, so that's not necessarily helpful. His strikeouts per 9 rate is really suffering, lowest of his career at less than 7, so that is an issue. Then you've got old, reliable Frankie Montas, who has given up 3 runs or fewer in all but 2 out of his last 19 starts, so he has been rock solid. The A's are 4-1 in his last 5 starts. They desperately need a win to be able to prolong their postseason hopes. And you take a look at what Frankie Montas has been able to do recently. He has given up 1 earned run or fewer in now 4 out of his last 7 starts, so he's been rock solid there. He's done a good job both at home and on the road. A 3.50 home ERA, a 3.65 road ERA. The big thing with him at home, 8 home runs given up in north of 90 innings. Meanwhile, 11 bombs given up in 81 in a third inning. So he's doing a good job of being able to keep the ball in the yard. When it comes to this Oakland A's team, you've got a lot of guys that are doing a great job of getting on base. All these guys have at least a 3.48 on base percentage. Josh Harrison, Starling Marte of the Marte Parte, Mark Canha, Tony Kemp. You're able to throw in there Matt Olson as well. With Olson, he's been able to supply the boom. 38 home runs, north of 100 RBI. He's on his part. Josh Harrison is sitting about at 285. Starling Marte is towards the top of the league when it comes to stolen bases with north of 40 of them. Got quite a few guys hitting between about a 245 to a 260. You've got Elvis Andrus just below that at a 240, but you take a look at him over the last 3 days. He's been able to hit nearly a 300. Tony Kemp, Yan Gomes, along Jed Lowry are all hitting between about a 245 to a 258. And then you've got Mr. Marte hitting above a 300 as well. So that has been helpful in getting back Matt Chapman, who's got 13 home runs ever since the beginning of the month of August. That is certainly going to be able to help. Now, this Oakland A's bullpen has been very bad recently. Lou Trevino has an ERA that is hovering right around a 9 over the last 3 days. You saw James Caprillion come out of the bullpen. He was a hot mess. Andrew Chafin's been able to do a good job. Was only used for 9 pitches yesterday. You've got Sergio Romo, who's certainly been up and down, but then you take a look at this Astros bullpen, and it has been better recently, but long relief is not necessarily a forte of the team. Christian Javier has been used as a little bit of a sort of do-it-all sort of reliever for the team, but Brooks Raley certainly has not been able to give you a whole lot of anything. Ryan Presley, along with Kendall Graveman, these guys have been great, but Yimi Garcia, ever since he was acquired from the Miami Marlins, he hasn't necessarily been himself. He's got right around a 4.3-ish ERA, so that is a little bit of an issue as well. Seth Martinez is someone that they might be looking to for innings, so we do know this with the Houston Astros. This lineup is absolutely ridiculous. You've got all these guys hitting at least a 275 with at least 24 home runs apiece, and Kyle Tucker, Jose Altuve, Yordan Alvarez, and Carlos Correa. And then you add in there Alex Bregman, who's hitting like a 290 for this bunch. You've been able to get something out of Chaz McCormick and Jake Myers when they've been called upon in the outfield. Jose Siri has filled in for Michael Brantley very well. So you got a lot of stuff going on there, but I just do not like what I'm seeing right now out of Mr. Zach Greinke. I'm right now seeing that initial line at DraftKings at 8, and I'm certainly going to be taking a look at that over as I wound up setting this total personally at an 8.8. But right now, I've got the Oakland A's handicapped as more like a minus 128-ish favorite. So going to be taking a look at the Oakland A's with my New York Post play of the day as a fade of Zach Greinke, and I'm going to be taking a look at the over that we're currently seeing at DraftKings. Or DraftKings up 931, 932 on the betting board. Got the Miami Marlins hit the road face off against the Tampa Bay Rays. David Robertson is going to be going for the Rays. Edward Cabrera is going to be going for the Miami Marlins. You currently have no numbers up on this game because Mr. Robertson was announced late. I'm seeing an additional line at DraftKings with the Rays at minus 310. I've got to feel like that's a little bit of a typo there with the Rays. I'm willing to lay more like a minus 230-ish with this team. You take a look at the Miami Marlins, and they have certainly been far from great, but at the same time, pitching has been okay with this team. You got to figure that Cabrera is going to give you everything that he has, but at the same time, probably not going to give you necessarily the world's greatest start. From there, you wind up getting into the bullpen of guys like Anthony Bender, Dylan Floro, and they've been able to do a relatively solid job. You take a look at Mr. Cabrera, and he's went 4 innings or fewer in each out of his last 4 starts. He hasn't necessarily been shelled. He's given up 3 runs or fewer in 4 out of his 5 starts, but certainly a guy that when you take a look at it, he is very prone to giving up the deep ball. He's already allowed 5 bombs in 20 1/3 innings. 2 of those have come on the road. He's only pitched 7 2/3 innings on the road, so very much a small sample size there. And then you take a look at Robertson, and well, this is someone that has been coming out of the bullpen, and he's been giving you like an inning per game, so you've got to figure that this is going to be a little bit of an opener du jour situation because with Ryan Yarbrough, this is someone that he wound up last pitching on Saturday, so you got to figure that this is going to be an opener for him, and if this is the case, which it certainly does look like from all reports it's going to be, that is very good because with Ryan Yarbrough, his career ERA is a point lower when he comes out of the bullpen rather than when he starts, and with Yarbrough as well. This is a man in which he is 25-6 coming out of the bullpen. Meanwhile, as a starter, he's got a losing record. So this is very smart what the Tampa Bay Rays are doing. He has been getting lit up a little bit recently. With Yarbrough, he's given up at least 4 runs in each out of his last 3 appearances because it's been 2 starts and then once he wound up coming out of the bullpen. But with the Tampa Bay Rays, they are also going to be backing him up with a very good lineup. You've got a trio of guys that have been able to give you at least 30 home runs in Mike Zunino, Brandon Lau, along Nelson Cruz, and then you throw in there Austin Meadows with north of 100 RBI, 26 bombs for him. And you've got a lot of guys like Meadows and Lau. They're in like a 230 to a 240, but they've got on-base percentages that are north of a 310. You've got Yandy Diaz sitting right around 255 with a 355 on-base. Joey Wendell sitting at 270 for this bunch. They have been hurt a little bit by the fact that Wander Franco is currently on the injured list, but G-Man Choi hitting about a 240 with a 360 on-base has been able to provide a little bit of something. And then for the Miami Marlins, not having Jesus Aguilar has really been a killer for this team. He's been able to supply north of 20 home runs, nearly 90 RBI, so without him, the power has not necessarily been there for this team. You've got Chaz Chisholm. He's been able to hit right around 250. He's got a double-digit amount of homers, and he's the only guy in the lineup right now that has been able to give you north of 13 home runs. Jesus Sanchez, he's actually heated up. He's got 13 home runs. He, over the last 3 days, has supplied 9 bombs, hitting right around at 240 in that time span, so that's been very encouraging. But you've got Lewis Brinson now hitting at 230. You figured that he would regress. Lewin Diaz, he's hitting about a 220. Then guys like Austin Jackson, along with Joe Panic, you're able to throw in there. Izan Diaz, only below the nose line of 200, along with Sandy Leon, along with Eddie Alvarez, certainly hurting, and we know this with the Rays. Their bullpen is just stockpiled with a whole bunch of guys. They're able to throw the heat. You've been able to get a lot of something out of JT Chargois, right around 2 ERA, ever since being acquired from the Seattle Mariners. You've been able to get back healthy. Quite a few of your guys, like a JP Fireeisen and a Pete Fairbanks, Nick Anderson, back in the fold. They are currently without Andrew Kittredge, but I do take a look at the spot. I think that the Rays should be more like a minus 230-ish favorite. I certainly think that the line that we're seeing at DraftKings with north of a $3 is a little bit of an overreaction, and this is a spot in which an 8 or lower, I'm going to be taking a look at the over, an 8.5 or higher, I'm going to be taking a look at the under. And that'll wrap things up for the Baseball Betting Podcast on this wonderful Friday. A big thanks to our good buddy Jeff Parles of VSiN for joining me in the last segment. If you like what you're hearing from this fine podcast, the Baseball Betting Podcast with Greg Peterson, you're able to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you've got a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you've got one of 2 ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters ZM, they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other way is via an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Going to be coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season, which means coming at you once again tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in.